Welcome to our event. Thanks for being here. My name is Jairam. I'm going to walk you through our story in retail. And joining me very soon are going to be Jagdeep and Sunit as well, who are our Chief Business Officer and Chief Operating Officer. I want to start first with the people model on what it is that we are trying to do. In retail, we have made the choice right up front that we are going to be multi-product by design. What I mean by that is that we want to be a multi-product company by investing in deep talent, technology, process in each domain. So, unlike some situations where you start with one product and you try to spread and become multi-product over time, we want to start as a multi-product company. And there are many reasons for that. I'll talk about it in a moment, but that's a choice. And that is reflected in the way our entire team is structured, and you will see many team players' names coming up in a little while. Jagdeep is our Chief Business Officer. All the P&L responsibilities roll up to him. All products and businesses are managed by him. Sunit is our COO. All the control functions roll up into Sunit. So whether it is credit and underwriting, credit policy, collections, customer service, fraud prevention, all this stuff, all the control stuff rolls up into Sunit. Saurabh is Jagdeep and Sunit you will see on the stage in a minute. Saurabh, if you're around, you want to just give a wave. Saurabh is back there. He is our CTO. A decade plus of experience with Amazon, an engineer at heart, and has built a great engineering organization. You see some of these kiosks here in the breaks. I would encourage you to go spend a little bit of time on these kiosks, which will open up, where we are showcasing some of the technology that Saurabh and team have put together in various aspects of our business. Markanday is our CDAO, Chief Data and Analytics Officer. You'll find Markanday near the kiosks as well, so do feel free to catch him in the breaks and ask him questions about our data strategy, our analytics strategy. Vipul is our head for all digital acquisitions, and all the partnerships business that we manage, all the digital originations that we manage roll up into Vipul. And finally, Arvind is our head of marketing with deep expertise in the marketing domain from Unilever, Viacom, and so on. If you look at this group, one thing that should strike you is that these are people with deep expertise, functional expertise in the area that they come from. These are not generalists who are doing kind of things a little bit outside of their ken. And that's a choice, and you'll see that choice reflected in our business heads as well. Each business head is a deep domain expert in stuff that the businesses that they manage. We'll talk more about that in a minute. DHFL. DHFL acquisition got completed on September 30th, 2021. The point of the slide is to say, and kind of put this to bed, that the integration of DHFL is well and truly completed. What do we mean by that? Well, we started with product integration, policy integration, the people integration, the branches reactivation, tech integration, etc. Things took a little bit of different amount of time each, but pretty much by the 6 or 9 month period, everything from an integration perspective was well and truly completed. If you see the bottom left of the chart, it shows you the results of a survey that we conducted with all erstwhile DHFL employees at the 1-year mark. So September 2022, we did a survey to say, okay, how do you feel about various things? I've shown 4 answers here on questions around whether they felt the integration was smooth, were they confident about the future, how did they think about the impact of technology, whether they understood the new business policies, processes, etc., and whether they felt that the career opportunity programs that we ran to essentially integrate them into the org structure were fair and transparent. As you can see, we got overwhelmingly positive response. From a people and culture perspective, the integration of DHFL has been as smooth as we could probably have imagined and as seamless as one can hope for. And that shows on the right-hand side in terms of the business outcomes and what we've been able to do with the business. First off, taking all the branches, we've been able to grow the branch network from there to go to the 423 branches we are at now. Of course, we had to shut down a few branches because there were some issues which were making them not economically viable. So we shut down 22 branches out of the DHFL lot. But we are now at 420 plus branches after having kicked off another 140 branches. The branches got active very quickly, and productivity increased really strongly as well, to a point where we are about 10 crores per quarter in terms of disbursements per branch in the erstwhile DHFL branches. So productivity continues to go up really nicely. So overall, DHFL integration well and truly done. So where do we go from here? What is our strategy in retail? And these are the 6 points that I'm going to try and land over the next few minutes. We are building a diversified retail business with housing as the foundation. Our target segment is the budget customer of Bharat. The core differentiation is this idea that we call high-tech plus high-touch, and kind of operational rigor in making high-tech plus high-touch happen. And we will talk in detail about what we mean by this. We are gaining a lot of traction, so this is no longer just a story about the future. There is a lot of traction on the ground, and we'll show you the numbers on where we are headed. Credit risk continues to be benign. However, there are some clouds gathering in this space, and we will talk about it. And we are building towards what we believe we can build a 2.5 to 3% ROA in this business. That's the kind of business this mix is likely to get us. The guiding principles of our portfolio construct have been 3. First and foremost, that we will be diversified. We will not be a monoline. For risk management purposes, for riding through the cycle, and because of the fact that the scale of businesses in India does not allow for somebody to build a 100,000 crore book with a single product. We just don't have businesses of that size, and the 1 or 2 businesses that are there are already taken. So it is impossible to build monoline businesses of that scale anymore. So diversified by design, built for scale, not for niches. So we are not the kind of business which will say, okay, there's a small profitable opportunity here, a small super profitable opportunity there, let's put it all together in a string of pearls. That's not what our business is about. We are about building scale. So it is a business which is set up for, we have a 30,000 crore net worth today, we got to scale that up, and so that requires a certain scale of business. So that is part of the design. For better or for worse, that's part of the design of how the business is built. And number 3, we do not like to compete directly with banks. So whether it is product categories, customer segments, or geographies, where banks are super strong, we would generally like to avoid those spaces. We do not want to get in a slugging match with banks because we believe we will lose. So we want to sidestep it as much as possible, be nimble, and stay in areas which are in the NBFC lane and not try to do what banks try to do. What that has resulted in is this pyramid on the right, and the segments that we have chosen. As we have said multiple times so far, housing is the foundation. It's a little more than half of our AUM right now. We have LAP on top of that. We have built a used cars business, which we will grow some more. And we have an unsecured business on top. The unsecured business itself comes in 4 different variants. Jagdeep will talk about it in a few minutes. But it all starts with the customer. Many of you haven't seen the Piramal story in retail from up close in the past. So you might wonder, hey, for a new NBFC, which customer segment are they going to go after? Who is the customer that we are going to target as Piramal, and how are they different than customers that banks target? You got some metrics here. I'll not walk through all of that. But what I want to show you over the next 30 seconds is a little bit of a feel for the type of customer we have at Piramal. Let's roll the video, please. So the budget customer of Bharat is the core segment. So 2 or 3 things you should notice from this quick video, which, by the way, features all our real customers. These are all customers of Piramal. One, there is a self-employed bias in the population. Number 2, these are all budget customers. Their wallet size is small. So they're unlikely, it's very unlikely that we'll be facing very tough competition from 4 different service providers in those smaller wallet sizes. The other thing that's worth noticing here is that while these are small businesses and micro SMEs, all of them have pakki dukan. There are no kachi dukan people. So if you want to actually visualize what types of areas Piramal goes into and where we don't go into, we don't do sadak pe vada pav ka thela, that type of business. We don't do that. Right? We don't do people who do not have a fixed place of business. The business itself can keep moving around. Food trucks, we don't do those businesses, right? We do businesses where there is a pakki dukan. That barber shop, that barber exists, that shop exists, it's a pakka barber. The tent wala barber we will not do, right? So that gives you a little bit of a sense of the type of customer that we go after. It's one peg below what banks would go after, but maybe a one peg above what a totally local NBFC, small-scale NBFC might go after. So that's kind of the space that we operate in terms of our customer. Now, if you think about that customer, what is the core problem, the fundamental issue faced by this customer? And you will see us over the next 5-10 minutes talking a lot about the customer and the problem before we get into our numbers, etc. So just bear with me, because I do think this is the core of what we are trying to do. What is the problem faced by the customer? We did a lot of consumer research, spoke to customers in tier 2, tier 3 towns to figure out what was the most fundamental issue. And here's what we found. The most fundamental issue here is the perception of inaccessibility of credit. The phrase that we kept hearing from our potential customer base again and again is, "हमें लोन कौन देगा?" ये जो कस्टमर है हमारा, उसके मन में सबसे बड़ा सवाल यही होता है कि हमें लोन कौन देगा? वो सोचता नहीं है कि 10 लोग खड़े हैं मेरे पीछे, मैं किससे लोन लूं? ये सवाल नहीं है उसके मन में। किस तरह का लोन लूं? ये सवाल नहीं है उसके मन में। उसके मन में सवाल है, हमें लोन कौन देगा? हमें कौन लोन देगा? This perception of inaccessibility of credit means that most people do not even try. They're reluctant to try to apply for credit. A majority of the home loan applications that we see coming in through the door have got 0 inquiries for home loans. Isn't that a crazy fact? Don't we all, when we look for home loans, don't we all go and shop? Don't we apply 3 different places, trying to see where I'll get the best rate, where I'll get the highest eligibility, etc. A majority of our customers have 0 inquiries of home loans on their app. That shows you that the mental mindset they're coming from is, "हमें लोन कौन देगा?" Now, we looked at that, and that insight led it to our positioning in the market. When you say, okay, where and how does Piramal compete? We compete in this idea or this core concept of what we call niyat. As a lender, we are a lender that goes beyond the paperwork and looks at the intent of the individual. That's our core positioning. Now, this idea that you like to go beyond what is visible on the papers, because the papers are weak of this customer base, and you have the ability, we will talk about it in a minute, to actually go beyond papers. That means you have this core value proposition to the customer. Of Piramal Finance, हम कागज से ज़्यादा नियत देखते हैं. Now, many of you might not have seen our ads. We went live with our ads in January of this year, and we have done 2 sprints of these ads in media. Many of you might not have seen it or would not have seen it, I hope, because you're not my target audience. So we have actually put the monies in media which our target audience consumes. Hopefully you didn't see, many of you did not see this ad, except maybe on a YouTube forward or something. But they've done really, really well for ourselves. I'd like to spend 1 minute showing you the 2 pieces of advertisement that we have created on हम कागज से ज़्यादा नियत देखते हैं. Please roll the video.
हाँ, हे कपड़े बघ, हे बॅग ठेव. अरे इकडे घेतो. मेरे पास दे. हाँ.
बाबा, नया घर ले ले.
बेटा मैं प्लास्टिक डाल देता हूँ, फिर गुड़िया के लिए नया घर हो जाएगा ना। हाँ, आजा तू इधर बैठ, ये पंखा पकड़।
सुनो
हाँ
सुनो ना, मेरा टिफिन का काम भी अच्छा चल रहा है,
हाँ।
तो नए घर के लिए लोन ले लो।
लोन लोन अप्लाई कैसे करेंगे?
पूरे कागज कहाँ है हमारे पास? हाँ,
वो आपके भाई का पैसा है ना आपके पास?
नहीं, भैया के पैसे भैया के। चल आजा।
कुछ कागज कम हुए तो क्या, ऐसी नीयत को ही हम होम लोन देते हैं। पिरामल फाइनेंस, हम कागज से ज्यादा नीयत देखते हैं।
नमस्ते सर।
नमस्ते।
वो लोन के लिए आपने अप्लाई
सर यही बताने आए हो ना कि मुझे काम काज के लिए लोन नहीं मिल सकता, क्योंकि मेरे पास धंधे के, कमाई के कोई पक्के कागज नहीं है, और मेरे सारे पेपर
लोन
तो
मिलेगा सर। हमने पता किया है कि आपने किसी से 1 लाख लिया हो या 1 रुपया, हमेशा लौटाया है। लोन मिलेगा।
हम कागज से ज्यादा नीयत देखते हैं। पिरामल फाइनेंस।
See, the issue with our customers is that they have disqualified themselves from the credit market. They have told themselves that they're not eligible. They've come up with reasons why they're not eligible. And their interaction with the formal banking system has only reiterated that self-image in their minds. I went to Pune recently in one of our branches. There was a person who worked in Exim Bank. Exim Bank, 3 floors above our office. And he told me, सर मैं 9 साल से सोच रहा हूँ घर लेने का, अप्लाई नहीं किया अभी तक कहीं। मैं बोला यार क्यों नहीं अप्लाई किया? प्यून है वो, एग्जिम बैंक में प्यून है बंदा। मैं बोला यार अप्लाई क्यों नहीं किया है? तो बोला नहीं सर हमें कौन लोन देगा, हमारे जैसे आदमी को कौन लोन देता है? He saw our ad and walked down the 3 floors and tentatively walked in to our office to ask whether there was a chance that he could get a loan. Those are the customers we serve. Those are the customers we want to serve. We believe India is full of customers like this. And we believe we have what it takes to serve these customers appropriately, in a profitable way and in a low-risk way. We will talk about that in a minute. This idea of how we serve and what do we do to actually get the risk right is this idea of high tech plus high touch. We want to be a firm that's very good at doing the high touch stuff, going and meeting these customers, getting to understand them, etc. But us also able to do the high tech stuff, bring in all the analytic muscle power, all the technology muscle power that you see around you in these kiosks, etc., to deliver solutions to customers in the most seamless ways imaginable. How does high tech plus high touch work? High tech plus high touch for us is the way we work. It is not as if there are some businesses we have which are high tech and some other businesses we have which are high touch. Every business is high tech plus high touch. The way the customer is dealt with is both high tech plus high touch. And think of it almost sort of almost like a dumbbell. The very early stages in the sales and sourcing part, we are very high touch. We like to meet the customer, we like to see them, we like to see their property, we like to do the personal discussion, property evaluation, etc. Sunit will talk about it in a minute. Underwriting and sanctions, all this stuff is happening in the acquisition stage. We like to meet the customer. And then back in collections, we like to meet the customer. We have strong power on the ground, and we like to actually jump in and do collections, knock on doors where necessary. The idea of high tech plus high touch is we are not fascinated on either one end to say, hey, I want to do everything digitally, and if it's not purely digital, then we are not interested, like many in the fintech world might do, nor are we totally enamored by the branches saying everything good can only happen in branches. We are quite happy to do both, and we have the ability to actually execute really, really well on both these things, dirt under the fingernail high touch stuff and very, very cerebral high tech stuff. And that's what we will try and showcase in the coming few minutes. Now, to showcase just one aspect of this idea that in the acquisition stage of the process, we do things which are both high tech and high touch. I want to just walk you through a customer journey. A customer who's looking to buy a home applies to Piramal, and Piramal does the evaluation. Just that part of the process. And I want to show you how high tech plus high touch comes together in that part of the journey.
घर ढूंढना एक सफर है। और इस सफर में मिस्टर कुमार को मिला पिरामल फाइनेंस। मिस्टर कुमार पिरामल फाइनेंस की वेबसाइट पर होम लोन के लिए अप्लाई करते हैं।
हाय मिस्टर कुमार, कृष्णा बात कर रहा हूँ पिरामल फाइनेंस से।
हमारे आरएम मिस्टर कुमार को कॉल करते हैं और उन्हें अपना पैन और आधार कार्ड शेयर करने को बोलते हैं। हमारा स्पेशलाइज्ड सिस्टम कस्टमर की सारी इंफॉर्मेशन एनालाइज करता है। इसमें सिबिल स्कोर, हंटर स्कोर, पैन इत्यादि पैरामीटर्स रिव्यू होते हैं। 27 एपीआईज पर जांच के बाद एक स्कोर जनरेट होता है जो होम लोन अमाउंट, इंटरेस्ट रेट और ईएमआई को प्रभावित करता है। हमारे आरएम मिस्टर कुमार के घर जाते हैं, उनके लोन लेने की वजह जानते हैं और बाकी की फंडिंग के बारे में पूछते हैं। इसके बाद मिस्टर कुमार हमारे आरएम को अपना आईटीआर और बैंक स्टेटमेंट देते हैं।
अब अगला स्टेप क्या होगा?
हमारे आरएम मिस्टर कुमार को बाकी का प्रोसेस समझाते हैं। पिरामल का प्रोफेशनल इवैल्यूएटर प्रॉपर्टी की जांच करता है। उसके बाद क्रेडिट एंड पॉलिसी टीम्स प्रॉपर्टी पेपर्स की जांच करती है और वैल्यूएशन निकालती है। इन सब के अनुसार लोन अमाउंट डिसाइड होता है। हमारे आरएम डिसीजन को समझ लेते हैं।
हेलो,
बधाई हो सर, लोन आपका सैंक्शन हो गया है।
थैंक यू।
आरएम कस्टमर को होम लोन अमाउंट, आरओआई, ईएमआई और टेन्योर के बारे में बताते हैं और मिस्टर कुमार के सफर को अपनी मंजिल मिलती है। एक नया घर, एक सफर जो अच्छी नीयत और विश्वास से बना है। एक कहानी जिसे पिरामल फाइनेंस ने शक्ति दी है।
I hope you saw at the very end that the agreement that we signed with the customer is also digital. So that agreement actually gets delivered to them, they digitally sign it. So that was the last step. I want to invite Sunit here, who's our COO. He will walk us through what some of the next level of details are in this high tech plus high touch and how we deliver it.
Thanks, Jairam. Good afternoon, everyone. Very nice to see a smile on a customer face all the time when we do this. So like Jairam mentioned, Anand mentioned earlier, I guess we are not at conflict with respect to having a distinct strategy on high tech or high touch. Idea is to blend it together, make it comfortable for customer, employees, channel partners to interact with each other. And that's why kind of look at the 4 dimensions that we are talking about. The 4 dimensions are about the branch network, personal discussion-based underwriting that we do at branches, the whole in-house appraisal capability we have created with respect to collateral evaluation, and lastly, the collection footprint that we have. Looking at the first one, 75% of our branches are in tier 2 and 3 towns. Idea is to make sure that as we continue to serve Bharat, to expand the footprint and ensure that we take the right kind of decisions. So therefore, this year we'll open about 100 branches, 20 of them have come about in this quarter alone, another 70 branches will come across in the next 2-3 quarters. We'll open another 100 branches. This in itself is well embedded with high tech, for example. We look at economic indicator data, we look at the risk from the bureau on various micro markets that we want to apply in, and then it gets into a bit of a mode of opening the branches in a particular suburb in a town that we want to be operating in. As a result of this, we have now a landscape of 423 branches. In addition to that, 136 micro branches, which helps span across 339 cities and towns, 25 states, and 13,200 employees operate out of many of these branches that we have. Moving on, we spoke about personal discussion. It's a key element of our strategy with respect to how we onboard customers. Idea is to make sure that in-person meeting takes place with the customer. The example of housing is what you saw earlier in the high-tech, high-touch video that we were seeing, and the example prior to that as well. Before that, I'll also introduce Nilesh. He's here with us. Feel free to interact. He's our head of retail credit with 20 plus years of experience in Bajaj Finance, earlier with ICICI Bank prior to this. 600 plus underwriters at branches, about 80 plus in our central processing units. We have 3 central processing units based out of Mumbai, Hyderabad, and Noida. This again is a tech platform which helps enable the personal discussion. We have 13 distinct segments which are coded in questionnaires in variable form. So whether it's a Kirana store owner or a wholesale trader, a retail trader, a spare part shop, everyone has a different questionnaire that the underwriter actually goes and meets. And
if I may, I hope people are understanding this aspect of what Sunit is mentioning. This is a very high-touch process. You're going and meeting the customer at their shop, trying to assess how much money they make, how much business they do, etc. But it is supported in a very high-tech way by creating a toolkit, an app, which our team has created proprietary, which is feeding this credit appraiser questions on what to ask for this type of customer. So essentially the tool is the standardization on a micro-segment to micro-segment basis of how to do the PD itself. And so that's kind of the jugalbandi between high-tech and high-touch that we do on the ground. Sorry, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jairam. So as a result of that, the information that's gathered by the underwriter is also an insight that we kind of use back again in our analytics environment, whether it's model creation for future or feeding into various other cohorts. One would like to see that how delinquencies are playing up in a particular segment and so on and so forth. The next part of this entire process is the segment that we serve in. Of course, you saw some visuals around the customer, the advertisements. The collaterals that we have are very different than what typically banks serve. As a result of which, we also kind of developed the team of having in-house appraisers who could go about conducting this activity. When we inherited DHFL, we had 90 such people doing this. At full-blown scale, it was even bigger with DHFL. Our idea was to make this a competitive advantage and therefore see how we can double the headcount or even grow further as the need arises. But the idea is to make the appraisal take place by internal staff, because loan to value is a very key component in underwriting, and therefore that decision should rest with the organization. As you know, mostly this activity is outsourced. The industry uses outsourced valuators in order to get the valuation of the property. In our case, mostly it's in-house. Only for regulatory reasons above 50 lakhs, there's one internal, one external, and therefore 2 appraisals take place. This again is a tech platform driven journey both for the employee or the vendor wherever this is taking place, where on the tech platform the technical request or the valuation request gets raised to the point the valuation gets put in. These are qualified civil engineers, diploma in civil engineering, people who go out on the field and get this entire details filled up and the case flows back to the underwriter for a final decision. 3 examples you can see here: a road constructor being met by our employee, a hotel owner from Aurangabad, or a government employee from Jalna. Lastly, I'll cover about collections. I also like to introduce Deepak. He's around with us here. You also must have interacted with him during one of the walkthroughs of the kiosk we have on collections. 20 plus years of experience in risk management, has served Axis Bank, ICICI Prudential Life in the past. We pretty much believe that we have one of the largest footprints in collections across the country, with close to about 1,200 people. The velocity of our operations is kind of visible here on the number of surfaces that have been initiated. 28,000 plus surfaces going on, 1,170 properties possession taken in the past. Of course, this doesn't pertain to the new book that we are building. The stressed asset book that we acquired from DHFL also endowed us with a large collection team on which further we have gone ahead and built. And expanded the collection team therefore. So as we continue to expand, grow our product bouquet, product suite, availability of the collection team on the ground, or through various other non-intrusive ways, whether it's telecalling, WhatsApp, or various other places, I guess we should see that we have a toolkit ready for that. Of course, lastly, on the collection side, we believe it's a process, and therefore as we continue to go on this large base of stressed assets that we are resolving on the DHFL side, we have been quite successful in seeing that the process continues to hold up as the velocity depicts here. Back to you, Jairam.
Thank you, Sunit. On the photographs on top, by the way, these are surfacey possessions. The final possession is actually being given to us. So you will see in each of these pictures that there is somebody wearing a lanyard. That person is a Piramal employee. So in the first one, the ladies are Piramal collection staff. In the second one, the gentleman is, and so on. And the person giving the keys is the representative of the district magistrate locally, who's given us the orders to actually take possession. And of course, we have official. So this is a standard process, and we have fairly detailed norms laid down internally because we do so many surfaces. So we have norms laid out on exactly how to go about it. So you see 3 of the pictures here of surfaces taking place. Now that was as far as high touch is concerned. On high tech, there are 2 or 3 things that I will kind of touch on. One is sort of our machine learning scorecards. Now, of course, machine learning scorecards have now become common, or at least scorecards have now become common across all lenders. In our machine learning scorecards, the one differentiating factor that I would say is, as a new and upcoming NBFC, we have had the opportunity to actually build our entire data infrastructure on the cloud. Which essentially means that you can have much more complex models running than you could if you were running on on-prem servers, right? So internally, for example, we do not run a single logistic regression model in Piramal. We don't, because we don't need to. We don't need to dumb things down to a logistic regression. We can easily use XGBoost or other tree-based models, which are actually very complicated to run on smaller servers. But on a cloud platform, it's very easy to run, right? So all our models will have hundreds of variables, running into them from lots and lots of different data sources. And we use models for approved decline decisions, for deciding how much exposure to take on the customer, what pricing to offer them, whether there is a fraud propensity or not. All sorts of decisions are all based on models. So we have tens of models that are live in our system, all of which are proprietarily built and all of which are cloud hosted in containers. So it's a very different architecture and technology than what many banks and kind of older financial institutions would do, who came up in a different world, in a pre-cloud era. So the architecture of hosting and containerizing these models is completely different. And what that does is it allows you to actually build models which have much stronger sloping power than what you will get from more standard models. So on the right here, we have shown decile-wise sloping of the bureau model, the largest bureau in the country, on our base. So at the decile 1, they have 10 times the risk of decile 10. The model that we have is 61 times, is it 61? 62 times the risk. So our model blows the generic bureau model out of the water in terms of how efficient it is in identifying the bads. Now, this is possible because, of course, our model is more catered towards our type of customer, but also it uses completely different techniques that are a lot more cloud amenable than more standard techniques. So This is just one model that I've shown for our largest business, which is housing loans. But we use models of this kind of sloping power in every single product domain. And in every product domain, we see the same thing, that our model significantly outperforms what we can get off the shelf from a bureau. Digital journeys, we already saw that in the video. Every step of the customer journey is aided by a digital tool, which we have created in-house. The UX, and if you go around walking through the kiosks in the break, you will get a sense of the kind of UX we create, right? And you will see how intuitive and how simple it is. You can just spend 5 minutes in the kiosk and you will feel like you can run the tool yourself. Absolutely no training is required. The UX is that simple. And we've got dedicated people, and we've got our UX head here in the audience as well. We've got dedicated people who just specialize on design, and who make the UX so simple and straightforward for all our technology tools that journeys are seamless for customers. Once a customer is sourced, from an employee perspective, we are an extremely information and data-led company. Extremely information and data-led company. We have 200 plus dashboards that we publish and update on a real-time basis all the time. My core dashboard that I look at has 200 to 300 variables that I look at. I look at my dashboard at least 20 to 25 times a day. I go to it all the time. That's the first thing I see in the morning, is the last thing I see before I go to bed. I keep seeing it through the day because it refreshes all the time. And essentially, every aspect on every employee in the business actually sees their own dashboards. You can see that's our multiverse on the top right, which is essentially the one place where all dashboards are hosted. We call it the multiverse. And the panel in the middle shows you what are the various segments in which we have dashboards. So you'll have risk, and you'll have growth and profitability and the whole shebang, like productivity, finance, and everything. And you'll have this thing here called month-end snapshot, which is essentially, I could go back and say, what was my month-end number as of July 2021? And I can just go there and take a look at it, right? And it will show me what I thought of the world at the end of July 2021. So it's kind of snapshots of history that we host. So we have hundreds of these, and not just do we have them, but people actually use them. So I want to show you one quick thing, and I'll show you some data on this. Can we roll the video, please, for a minute? Everybody in Piramal Finance, every employee uses dashboards. And it is core to the way we operate ourselves. And in fact, it is so core that we measure how many people are actually using dashboards. And we measure like MAUs on dashboard and DAUs, just like people would measure kind of app visits, etc. So we measure how many people come to our dashboard. As you can see, we have 380,000 visits, unique visits on our dashboards. So I'm sure all of us kind of are all work, and all of our companies here all must be having performance dashboards, etc. Just think about what 380,000 visits to the dashboard implies. People come to the dashboards all the time, and everybody comes and visits. In fact, we track the performance of people who come to the dashboards versus performance of people who don't visit their dashboards. And we find a massive sloping between how many times a person comes to the dashboard and sees their metrics and how they actually perform and what their productivity numbers are, etc. And you can see some of the quotes here. We are very, very big on performance dashboards and actually measuring everything that we do and making sure that every person is aware at every given point in time of what their numbers are, what everybody's numbers are. We believe in radical transparency. Those of you who have come to our office in Kurla will see big television screens, touch screens, in which the entire performance numbers, the dashboards that are all live. Anybody walking by can just see them. It's no problem. We have no problems with it. Anybody in home loans can see what the numbers are in personal loans. The car loans guy can see what's happening in lab. We have no problems with it. We believe in radical transparency. The idea that everybody should know every number. If the risk guy will know what the credit numbers are, the credit guy will know what the sales numbers are. We don't care. We believe in showing everybody the numbers because we believe that that's what creates an environment in which everybody makes informed decisions. I'll invite Jagdeep now to talk to us about the growth story and what he has executed over the last 2 years.
Thank you, Jairam. I'll quickly walk you through some of the business highlights in the next few slides. Firstly, if you look at the first chart, since the acquisition of DHFL, which gave us a strong platform to expand our distribution into many more Tier 2 and Tier 3 towns, we made those investments, and as these branches started seasoning, we could see the results in the form of disbursements taking off. If you look at our disbursements in the last quarter, it's almost 10x of the disbursements that we did in the quarter preceding the acquisition. So disbursements continue to be on a strong momentum. The strong disbursement momentum is also being backed by very healthy yields. If you look at our yields on the chart on the right, you can see the yields being sustained and in fact showing an uptick in the last few quarters. Moving on to the next slide, since the acquisition, we've also seen our AUM accelerate, which is more pronounced in the last 4 quarters. The AUM is now been, the last quarter, we've seen our AUM grow at about 57%, and of the AUM, about 78% comprises of secured loans. The chart on the right talks about the AUM mix. At the point of acquisition, predominantly the portfolio was what we inherited from DHFL. Quarter on quarter, you can see the mix change, and in the quarter, which is the last quarter, 2/3 of the AUM has now been underwritten using the Piramal scorecards toolkit that we showcased in the earlier part of this presentation. So the mix is now truly shifted to what the Piramal team has been underwriting over the last couple of years. Again, we've made significant investments in strengthening our franchise, and in our business, people are one of the most important component. If you look at the chart on the left, it talks about the ramp up of staff across the branches that we inherited and the 144 branches that we set up over the last couple of years. We are now a family of 13,200 employees, and all our branches are now appropriately staffed based on their potential and the opportunity in each of those micro markets. The chart on the right talks about our productivity uptick. You can see the productivity in terms of disbursement per branch, see a steady uptick quarter on quarter. And if you look at the AUM, we have a healthy AUM of about 72 crores per branch at the end of last quarter. Sorry, 82 crores at the end of last quarter. Housing is the fundamental foundation on which we are building our multi-product retail business. We are focused on the affordable housing space and want to become an at-scale lender in the affordable housing space. Let me first introduce our leader who runs our housing finance business. Imtiaz, if you're in the room, please put your hand up. Imtiaz leads our housing finance business, comes with more than 25 years of experience, deep expertise in building and scaling housing finance portfolios. Imtiaz in his last assignment was instrumental in setting up and growing the Asha affordable housing business. If you look at our disbursements and AUM, you can see a steady trajectory of growth on both the disbursements and AUM. Looking at the bottom left, if you look at our average ticket size, we have an average ticket size of 18 lakhs. Our acquisition yield is at about 11.2%. This is all in the core area of affordable housing space. Of course, we've been reading some material in the recent few quarters in terms of the headwinds being faced by the affordable housing segment. We, however, continue to see robust growth in our business. The chart on the top right tells you about where we are playing in this market. On one side, you have the disbursement volumes. On the other side, you can see the disbursement yields. If you look at the 3 large players, we've taken a group of 10 peers, NBFCs and HFCs to plot this chart. If you look at the top 3 players, you can see them generate a higher volume but also it's coming at a much lower yield. This gives you a landscape in terms of where we are in the housing space right now. Moving to LAP. LAP is a business where we are primarily focused on the micro SME segment. Our entire portfolio is underwritten on the basis of customer cash flows. And we see a very, very steady growth in both the disbursements and AUM in this space. Let me introduce our leader for this business. Mayank leads this business for us. Mayank is at the back. Comes with more than 20 years of experience, primarily in mortgage sales and credit. He's been here with Piramal for more than 6 years and spent a lot of time in both our sales and credit verticals. Our average ticket size is about 20 lakhs in LAP, comes at an acquisition yield of 12.6%. The portfolio is extremely granular in nature, very comfortable LTVs of about 46%, and most of this portfolio is PSL compliant or meets the PSL norms. In terms of the segment play on LAP, you can see that the larger players who have a higher volume of disbursements are operating at a slightly lower yield compared to where we are operating. However, there are a couple of outliers who are generating volumes which is almost the same as what we are doing right now, but are operating at a much, much higher segment rate. Used car is a business that we've set up in the last couple of years. And as we know, the used car segment is undergoing structural changes with more and more sales happening through organized channels and dealers. Since we set up this business in the last 2 years, we've made our presence felt, and we can see a very steep growth in both disbursements and AUM. Kamesh is the leader for this business. Kamesh, can you put your hand up? Yeah. Kamesh comes with more than 20 years of experience in the car loan industry. He spent his entire career in the car loan industry working with players like ICICI Bank, Toyota Financial Services, and Volkswagen. Kamesh has spent extensive time in both the wholesale, which is the inventory funding, and retail in the car loan ecosystem. If you look at here, the business, our average ticket size is about 6 lakhs, and we are getting a disbursement yield of about 16.4%. And if you look at our segmental play, we are a newer player and operating at a rate which you can see is comparable to one other peer. But of course, most of the other peer players have been in this business for much longer time than us. I'll finally look at our unsecured business. We operate in this business through multiple form factors and channels. If you look at our unsecured business, we have embedded finance, we have our branch-led PL and BL business, and the microfinance business that we generate from the 136 odd branches. Vipul, whom Jairam introduced earlier in the section, leads our embedded finance business. Rajshekhar leads our branch-led PL business. Rajshekhar comes with more than 2.5 decades of experience in the unsecured segment, having spent considerable time at ICICI Bank and Bajaj, where he was last with. He's also had stints in both the sales verticals and the risk verticals. Comes with extremely deep expertise in having seen the business cycles over the last 2 decades. You can see the business growth being happening at a very steep pace, and today unsecured constitutes about 22% of our total AUM. The AUM is pretty much equally distributed between our branch-led unsecured businesses, which is the phygital model, and the embedded finance business, where we work with more than 19 partners and contributes about equal percentage as the branch business. show you a quick glimpse of our unsecured customers, not getting into the complete details, but broadly, these are the form factors in which we operate. The average ticket size ranges from 30,000 in microfinance to about 6.4 lakhs in business loans. The yields vary between 18 to 20%. That's a quick snapshot of the unsecured business.
Thank you, Jagdeep. One thing you'll notice in the way Jagdeep was introducing the leaders, that a lot of the leaders that we have, the business leaders, have been both on the business side and on the risk side. This is true, by the way, of Jagdeep himself. He started his career and spent most of his time on the credit side and now runs the business side. I worked for many years in Capital One on the risk side, and I now run the business side of the operation. Same is true for Mayank, same is true for Rajshekhar. A lot of our leaders are leaders who cut their teeth on credit. And so as business leaders tend to be a bit more balanced because that's kind of your upbringing. With that background, I want to spend 2 minutes talking about risk and what's going on in risk. These are the delinquency numbers, vertical delinquency numbers, 30 days past due ratios at the full portfolio level and at the product to product level. This is obviously new disclosure. This is not stuff we have shared in the past. But if you see what's been happening to the overall, this is vertical, month on month, how has the 30 plus moved? You can see that at its peak, it used to be whatever, 3.5%, 4%. It came down a lot. Last quarter, it has gone from 2 to 2.25%. If you look at the secured lending businesses, risk has been very stable. The housing risk, even kind of after having fallen more than half, from its peak has remained stable, LAP has remained stable, used cars has remained stable. But in unsecured, we see a rise. We spoke about this a little bit in our earnings call as well. In unsecured, we see a little bit of a rise in the vertical delinquencies. It is back to where it used to be 1 year ago. Now, when we see something like this, the question that we should be asking ourselves is, hey, are we doing something? Are we kind of trying to fix matters? And what steps are we taking to actually fix it? And a good way to actually look at some of that is through this, which is again a new disclosure that we are making, or a new set of numbers that we are sharing with you, which is a vintage risk. For those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, the metric that's actually being shown here is 3 month on book 30 plus. So take any tranche, look at it 3 months after it was originated, and essentially see what the 30 plus delinquency rate was for that tranche at the 3 month mark, right? So essentially, if you are adjusting for maturity and just looking at the quality of the business that is actually getting originated. So when you take risk actions on the portfolio, this is the metric that moves first. This will move first, and many months later, the first chart that we showed, the vertical delinquency chart, that'll move. So this is the first to move. So as you can see here, look at what has happened to unsecured. The increase in risk that we saw on a vertical basis, if you see on a horizontal basis, risk continues to come down, which means every subsequent tranche that we are booking in unsecured is coming in at lower risk. And this, we believe, will result in better vertical risk in the months to come. I mean, it has to. Mathematically, it has to. Now, why does this happen? It's not happening by itself, obviously. We are taking actions. And that's what we pride ourselves in, is that we watch vintage delinquencies very early and super closely. And as we watch it, we keep taking actions. I've got an example here of housing on the left-hand side. We saw the July 22 tranche go up. We saw, hey, something wrong is going on. Why is the 30 plus number in July tranche, go up? And we took some actions. I'm not telling you exactly what those actions are. That's proprietary. But we did a set of interventions in that immediately in the next month, risk fell. We did a second set of interventions, and then risk continued to fall, right? This type of proactive action, which you constantly keep doing, every month, we do at least 15 to 16 interventions in our businesses to actually tweak something up, something down, etc., to manage the overall pool. This is the unsecured side. On the business loan side, you see, you take some interventions, immediately approval rates fall, right? Essentially, you are starting to cut out some parts of the population, and hopefully only letting the better customers come through, right? So this idea that constant interventions are the way to manage risk in a retail business is core to the way we manage our operation. What are we building towards? We are building towards a business FY28, we think about 80 to 90,000 crores of book, with about 40 to 45% housing, 20 to 25% LAP, about 5 to 10% used cars. I've just said used cars here, but if we end up doing another secured lending product, let's say a gold loan, etc., that will also fit in that 5 to 10% category. And the rest of the stuff will be unsecured across various form factors that Jagdeep mentioned before. Currently, look at the gray stuff at the bottom. Currently, the business is has just gotten past break-even. Now here, I want to emphasize, there are two parts to the retail business. There is the new retail business, what we are originating, and then there is all this old kind of DHFL NPA assets, where we are just collecting. That second part is wildly profitable. Like, we make a lot of money there. So we have taken that out. We have removed that from this calculation to say, okay, let's just look at the core organic business that you're originating. That's this gray bar, where we are today in the retail business. So we used to be, in our investment phase of the business, we used to be negative ROA throughout. The negative ROA became slightly lower, slightly lower. Now we have broken even, and we are making slight positive ROA in the retail business, the core retail business, X of the Diwan housing bounties that might be coming. But that is a 0.5 to 1% ROA business, which we believe can go to 2.5 to 3%. There is a little bit of play in NII, not a whole lot, but a little bit of play. The big play is in OPEX. We are currently a 6% OPEX to assets business in retail, and this needs to come down to 3.5 to 4%. Mostly scale and productivity related deltas. Credit costs, which are today fairly low, 0.5 to 1%, we believe will go up to 1.5 to 2%, which is what we are penciling in here. And with that higher level of credit costs, we believe we will be able to deliver a 2.5 to 3% ROA. So that's the big picture story here, growth to 80 to 90,000 crores and ROA going to 2.5 to 3%. That's the business that we are trying to build in retail. So conclusion, what are we executing on? We are building a diversified business, high tech plus high touch and rigorous execution on that, and building a 2.5 to 3% ROA business by 28. And what are the big things to monitor here? The risk story in unsecured needs to play out. We need to be very, very watchful of how that plays out. Jagdeep mentioned the growth slowdown in the small ticket housing, and we got to watch that and see how that sustains going forward. And OPEX to assets, which is the big play in our ROA tree. Are we able to deliver the OPEX to assets trajectory that is required for us to get to the 2.5 to 3% that we spoke about? So that's our story on retail. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to us through this period. We will take a short break here for 15 minutes. There are some snacks around. Our booths will be manned again. So I invite you, once you've taken a drink, taken your snacks, to go to the booths, and our staff will be able to help you with some of the tech solutions. When we come back, Yash will walk us through the wholesale story. Thank you for listening.